This is the EricSwanRacing.com podcast number 92 with Trevor Watson. So thanks for coming on. And you are a big motorsports guy in the industry, so I wanted to get your opinion on things and just have a chat.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to chatting with you for next hour or so, and all things motorsports, man. It's gonna be fun.
For sure. So let's start with your apparel. I see you wearing a Carbonin bodywork hat and Galfer brake lines. Those are some big brands. Carbonin is definitely a newer one to the industry, it sounds like, or at least the United States.
Yeah, they get distributed through Hustle Hard, and Andrew Lee hooked me up, a year and a half ago, right before I started getting back into road racing. And he saw my posts on Instagram and stuff, and it's like, hey man, we have this set of Carbonin bodywork for your CBR 1000 S1, and it's all painted red and everything. We want you to try this new paint out and see how durable it is. And I've had a full season on this stuff, and it's fantastic. Fortunately, I haven't crashed in it, so I couldn't tell you how good it is crashing. But the fit and finish, the quality. Everything's pre-drilled. It has the Zeus fasteners ready to rock and roll. It's all just a couple Allen wrenches. I mean, some of the stuff like the pros talk about, like Jason Rabi and Corey Alexander and Tyler Wyman, some of these guys that run that stuff, I mean, they can attest to it. It's pretty legit. It's not cheap, but it's good stuff for sure.
All carbon fiber, it sounds like?
No. It's avial fiber is what they call it. So it's some sort of hybrid, but all the pressure points are reinforced with carbon fiber. So it's good stuff. It's flexible. It's solid, man. No issues with it. And it's really easy to take on and off. I can't say that so much for the street work.
Yeah.
Like I probably couldn't even put it back together if I wanted to. There's so many nuts and bolts, and it's not like the old days for sure. But yeah, the Carbonin stuff is good. And then the Galfer stuff, they're sponsoring me for 2022. So I got to represent, they make them some good brake lines. And I was running ABS on my S1, and I can go in that a little bit later, but I tried to keep my bike as stock as possible. And that was kind of the agenda behind it. Is like, hey, I'm going to take this street bike and go race it with minimal stuff done to it. But it got to the point with Moto America, we can't run ABS. So as much as I'd like to, maybe in a rain race or something like that, it was just becoming a little bit of a hamper. And plus, with ABS, even with steel braided lines, you do get a little bit of fade because there's all that metal plumbing that's through the bike that doesn't like to cool down. So
that makes sense. Everything, it changes a little bit when you change materials, change electronics, what's going on. I've heard some people talk about in the grass, they like to have ABS, so they're not just hitting the brakes and tucking the front or something like that as easily. Not saying you can't do it, but you maybe could. I think it was Marcel Ernie. I was watching one of his videos, and he was talking about, oh man, I'm so glad I had ABS. I was using the front brake in the grass and I didn't crash. He was that's a little hairy, but I don't know if it's that good, if you can trust it that much.
Yeah, I don't know, because I can only speak for my bike, and I'm sure the BMWs, maybe the Ducatis, some other ones are very similar, but there's 5 different bank angle sensors in that thing, right? So as you're going into a corner and you're kind of trail braking in, the lever will actually release. So it's not like your car where you get like the pump and the paddle in your lever or anything like that. It doesn't do that, but you can literally feel the thing releasing. It doesn't come back to your knuckles or anything. It actually kind of goes the opposite way and say, hey, dummy, you're too deep on this thing, and electronics are trying to figure it out and get the maximum traction. But I've ran off the track, but ABS was unplugged. All I did was just unplug the fuse for the pump. On the CBR, you do have to keep the pump in there. That's where all the traction control and all the brains of it kind of goes through. But yeah, I would just unplug the fuse and run ABS lines that didn't work.
So. Yeah, that always brings up the question of, obviously there's MotoGP, which is the development of all the technology for motorcycles, and Formula One would be the car equivalent of all the open wheel technology being developed and the hybrid engines and all that stuff. But those 2 championships still have tons of restrictions. What if there was an open class, a purely open, do whatever the hell you want to do, for both cars and bikes? I think that would be really interesting, because we have the technology to maybe, predict suspension per corner So you can have different settings per corner and all that, but that's banned. You know, there's so many technologies that we've developed that are on the shelf.
Yeah, yeah, some of it's out there, right? And kind of back in the old days, some of that stuff was baked in to ECUs and stuff like that, with the old Yoshi boys running basically GPS and their tracking,
Yeah.
on the track, and no wheel sensors, but exactly where that bike was on the track, and kind of could retard the timing and stuff like that per corner. And I'll never forget the first time I saw that technology actually happen is when they said, "Oh, it wasn't happening," right? So I was at Miller Motorsports Park, and you see Zemke come out and absolutely just smoking the rear tire. You see Eric Bostrom and the boys just smoking the rear tire. And then Matt Mladen comes through the attitudes, and you hear the bike go coming out of the corner, and then he bounces off the rev limiter going to the next corner. I'm like, look at that. And you can actually see the dotted lines on the track where it's slip grab, slip grab, slip grab, slip grab. And I'm like, dude, you can't, it's right there.
Yeah.
And when you physically hear it too, it's crazy. But yeah, it'd be cool to have some of that stuff. If they're not pushing the envelope, they're probably not doing their job. If they're an OEM or a mechanic or a crew chief, if they're not looking for those gray areas to get the most performance out of it, they're not doing their job.
Yeah. And now this year, after the first round, it's been in the second round even for MotoGP. You see a lot of different manufacturers up top. KTM is killing it, and Yamaha is right there. Ducati, they have 8 of them on the grid now, so they're everywhere, it seems like.
It's everywhere, man. They got all the privateer teams, the Rossi team, obviously the factory team. It's nuts. And how are you going to beat that as far as the manufacturer goes? They're going to win the manufacturer's title. They got, over a third of the grid are on Ducatis. But there's a lot of good parity out there. The Yamaha is obviously a little bit older, and I think they're running the new 2022 bike, but they're not having good success with it yet. Fabio's riding okay, of course, but the track conditions in Indonesia were challenging. But the Suzukis are hauling now, and they've obviously been handling really well, but they got the horsepower figured out. Seems like the Hondas are doing really well. I think with Mark, this last deal, they got a lot of rear traction, and Mark is a dirt tracker, man. So he likes to kind of slip and slide that thing around. And I think they kind of tuned in some of his old bike in that thing. And that's why you saw him kind of slipping and sliding and, spin himself to the moon. So I don't know. I hope he's okay. I know he has double vision, which was announced again today. But yeah, those boys are crazy. And the parity right now is fantastic to watch. There's no runaway. You don't know who's going to win. I mean, you watch like Supercross, it's always going to be Jet Lawrence or Eli Tomac or those guys, whatever. But yeah, it's phenomenal to watch. Almost even like Moto America, right? It's gonna be Gagne and Skoltzy's up there, and and that's about it. Those guys kind of run away with it, and everybody's racing for third and fourth.
Yeah, MotoGP. I mean, it's just such a stacked field now. You have probably at least a national champion at every single rider, if not a world champion at some level, or at least a race winner at other world champions. So it's such a huge field, and the technology is getting all better. And even with the Moto2 class, being all the same machines, sometimes different chassis. They got the Boscoscuro. I think there's the Calyx and maybe one other brand in there.
Yeah. There's one that just has like 2 riders, right? And then like they kill it on this, like there's just 2 prototype frames that they're on, but everybody else is on the Calyx and stuff like that. And they're doing really well. That's 675 Triumph that they obviously that thing. I mean, those Moto2 bikes turn faster lap times at COTA than Moto America Superbikes do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see one of those be put in the new 600 class with the different rules package. I don't know if that's too fast or they have to restrict it further.
Yeah, obviously it's not a horsepower thing, right? Because again, a Moto America Superbike is going to have more horsepower than a Moto2, Triumph. So, and the lap times difference aren't even close. And you have those 2 massive long straightaways there uphill, you have whether it's downhill, but geez, to be able to make that sort of time up is phenomenal. And it's not even close. They're seconds apart.
For sure. And, Paul Espargaro this year, he really, he impressed me. I was not looking for him to be on the podium, and he was right there. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, that was a good debut for him and the bike, and trying to get things shaked out for sure. And I just hope they keep that momentum going. You know, I think the bike is good and they just got to tweak a little bit. They all kind of look the same now. They all have the same funnel on it, that same long raked out front nose. And there's a big gap between the front tire and the body work. And they all run these crazy aerodynamic packages and stuff. But the parity is, like you were talking about, Eric, it's fantastic, man. It's great for racing. You have no clue who's going to win.
Yeah, it could be just about anybody. It depends who crashes out, has a good qualifying, or maybe just comes from 13th place to be on the podium. You just never know.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if they're on a factory bike or, you know, the privateer bike. The equipment, 2-year-old equipment is doing just as good as the new stuff. So it doesn't matter if it's a KTM, Ducati, all 9, 10 of those things.
Yeah.
The couple Yamahas and Suzukis and stuff. It's fantastic for the fans for sure and great to watch.
Yeah, and people were always talking about, oh, when Rossi retires, oh, what's going to happen? No one's going to watch racing anymore. I mean, personally, you know, I don't have many riders apparel or gear. I don't, you know, I love watching all the different riders and seeing who does better. You know, I have favorites a little bit, but I don't really care who wins. Like, I was disappointed that Marquez wasn't able to race, but I was like, well, there's still going to be a good race. Like, I'm not going to not watch it because he's not in it. It's just I want to see a good show, and sometimes you get people from mid-pack doing better, and it's nice to see them on the podium for the first time. But it's also nice to see that champion, you know, get another win. That's cool too. But you just you can't have too much money into it because you just never know what's going to happen.
You don't, and you're right. It's good to see the new riders come up. Even was it Martin win in Grassini?
Jorge Martin was up there. He was. I'm not sure.
Was it
reading off the top of my head though.
Yeah, but just to see the emotion from you know, the Grassini team winning at Qatar was awesome because they haven't won since Elias beat out Rossi back in what, 06?
Yeah, it's early 2000s.
Yeah, it's been forever since the Grassini bike gone and got a win, and so that was great to see.
Yeah,
those guys dominate. Remember Mark? What's his name? Starts with an M. No, I'm just drawing a blank. But he was on the Grassini bike back in the day, and he comes out of Phillip Island and just lighting it up, and throwing up the deuces and stuff for the win.
Like Matt Mladen or Marco Melandri.
Marco Melandri. Yeah. That's who it was. Yeah. That was cool.
And now he went over to World Superbike for a couple of years. I don't know if he's still racing this year.
I don't think he is. You know, with the TV coverage here in the U.S., I haven't paid too much attention to World Superbike. We have subscriptions for MotoGP and some of the other ones, but World Superbike's kind of off the radar since no one really televises it here.
Yeah, I just do the video passes myself because I don't have TV. I try not to watch the news too much. I was just at the diner the other day, and you know, there happens to be a TV, so I'm kind of glancing at it, and I think four stories in a row about the news were murder, death, and then the next one was war. I'm like, oh, that's better, you know. It's like terrible. I hate watching that stuff. I just do the, hey, mister, what's going on in the world? And you can get most of your information with talking to somebody.
Yeah, it's miserable, right? Where they say, like, if it bleeds, it leads or something like that, you know, and misery loves company. So they just feed off of that stuff. And man, it's crazy. Even it's a little bit off topic, but kind of on those same lines. But even like there was a fight at Supercross, right? A couple privateers went at it, and those guys got suspended for a round or two, but they're marketing in it and showing it like, oh, we got the action. I'm like, but then you penalize those guys. It's like they just brought all this extra eyes to the sport, and then you penalize them for it. So, but yeah, it's one of those things again where it kind of, it bleeds, it leads. You know, if there's some sort of turmoil or chaos or drama.
It's like, yeah, what are they trying to promote? Do they really want the drama? Do they want that spectacle for the TV ratings? But they're going to penalize them anyway. It's kind of like a double standard. So was it in gear or like on track, or was it like in the pit lane?
No, it was on track. It was a couple privateers in one of the heat races. I guess they went off a jump and one over jumped and landed on the back of them. And as they're getting up, and it's funny, they're both wearing this brand new fly gear.
Yeah.
So like teammates, but they're on completely different bikes. One's on a Honda, one's on a Cowie, and they just start going at it, man. And the you know, the track workers come in and separate them and all that stuff. And but yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, those violence, and they don't want to show that, but then they promote it and all the other stuff all week long. So
right, it's like if it's consensual fighting between two professional athletes, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, especially if they have like a helmet and chest pads and stuff like that. You're not going to do too much damage, you would think.
Yeah.
But maybe they should have like a showdown moment. Two guys in the ring, you get 30 seconds or what?
Yeah. Yeah, man, you're right. The news is miserable. We only watch it. Typically, I'll just turn it on for the weather, and that's it. Obviously, being down here in Nashville area, this time of the year especially, the weather can get pretty gnarly. When you have the warm air coming up from the Gulf and the cold air coming up from where you're at, and those things collide, dude. And oh man, when the sirens pop off, it's pretty hairy for sure.
A lot of tornadoes or hurricanes even.
Yeah, tornadoes here. We'll get some remnants of hurricane stuff, but not really. But the tornadoes, they hit here for sure. They always hit at night too.
Oh yeah, so you're not expecting it. You're maybe asleep, and then sirens are going off.
Yeah, it's never like midday where everybody's at work in these big buildings or anything like that. It's always in the middle of the night, just the way they kind of flow together. And yeah, pretty scary stuff. Coming from California, that's actually I've never seen a tornado out here. Of course, the sirens have popped off, but I've seen a tornado in California. Go figure.
Yeah. Well, I was at the Daytona 200 a couple weeks ago, and we had some high wind, 50, 60 mile an hour warnings. There was, I don't know, a thunderstorm warning. We had to shut down for a couple hours on different days because of lightning and thunder and rain on the banking is too much for competitors. So we had to shut down for a while. And then there was a tornado warning or a watch or one of the two. So yeah, we had to all take shelter, all the marshals, and get in your car or a building. And then I drove here with a friend. Like I just got in the car and hunkered down out of the rain for a couple hours, ate my lunch and relaxed.
Yeah, my buddy Jeff Wheat and Robert Langford were down there corner working too. I don't know if you know those guys, but they were down there with Midwest Track Time track and doing that. I think they were corner working turn 5.
Okay.
But they were down there too. Jeff goes every year.
Yeah.
This is the first year for my buddy Robert to go down there and do it too. And, they had a good time. And
yeah, it's cool. Just like the riders become your family, the corner workers become your family. And I don't know everybody yet, but I'm starting to learn all the names. And it's cool after a while. You can hear other people over the radio like, oh, I know who that is. I know that person. And it's like, oh, they become friends. And you start seeing them at different rounds, or you're not even planning to be there and see them, but you happen to see this person you've seen at like the last 6 rounds. Like, how did that happen? Plans converge. And actually, one of the guys gave me a place to stay last time. So he drove me all around, picked me up from the airport, and, went to bike night over the Main Street.
On Main Street, yeah.
And had a lot of fun. There's free concerts going on there, all kinds of stuff, and music and food and people selling all kinds of women's underwear and necklaces and whatnot, it's just a party town.
Was that your first experience on Main Street?
So I had been there actually for October. I went for the Race of Champions for CCS. I worked that event. So, it wasn't as big at all. So this is the first time for Bike Week that I've been down there.
Nice. Yeah. It's kind of more of a Harley fest, right? It's
yeah, for sure.
It's cruiser, but heck with the bagger class and the hooligan class and flat track, it's all Harley and Indian. So it kind of makes sense. Bike Week's not so much about the 200 as much anymore. Yeah. I've gone several times. I think the first time I went to Daytona was in 2004.
Oh, nice.
And just went with my buddy and we went down there, and that's when Supercross was on Saturday night and the 200 was on Sunday.
Yeah.
Track was all still there, so you went to Supercross Saturday, watched the 200 on Sunday, and it'd blow my mind because you'd be standing on the banking, which is not nice if you're standing watching Supercross. It sounds like a good idea, but that thing is banked on that straightaway, man.
Yeah, like over 30 degrees, 31 to 33, I think.
Yeah, so you're sitting there and you're just on a lean the whole time, and you're standing. There's nowhere to put your beer down because it'll just topple over and go down the track, and it's crazy, man. Then you sit there and think like, there's thousands of people on this track right now, and in 10 hours from now, there's going to be bikes doing 190 miles an hour through here.
Yeah,
it's
a pretty unique place to be for sure. I was there in January also for the ARMA event. They had vintage bikes and vintage racing, and they also did the flat track out just outside of the racetrack.
Yeah, turn 2 over there, turn 1. Yeah.
Yep, and that was my first time ever doing a flat track event of corner working it, and actually seeing one in person. Watched it, many times AFT on TV, but it's different up close inside the racetrack. People are going around you, and people. I mean, it's a different type of crowd than the professional crowd. It's ARMA.
Yeah.
It's, older bikes, older folks usually. You got some young kids in there, but they're not always pushing as hard. So we actually had way less crashes for the flat track than I would have expected. Not so much for the road racing though. When they crash in the road racing side, the older folks don't get up as easily. So it was like, man, every time is like an ambulance. Jeez. You wish it was a little bit cleaner sometimes, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, that the flagger there, the starter, whatever, how he waves it and does this thing and like bends over backwards as they go by him and stuff. He does like the Matrix and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of training you had to take to learn how to do that, but it hasn't been an option for me yet.
Yeah, that stuff's pretty cool. But you're right, man. Us old guys, we don't get up good. I actually threw out my back. I don't even know how, but yeah, it's man, we don't recover quick for sure.
Yeah, the ground hurts, but I just talked to somebody the other day who I said, I was at the track and somebody crashed. I said, was it a fatality? That was their first go-to response question. Like, how's their skin? And I looked at him for a second. I said, I've crashed 15 times or so on the racetrack, and I've never had a single cut or abrasion on my skin. That's not how it works. I mean, we have full gauntlet-sized gloves, full, 12-inch tall boots with torsion control for your ankle and all that. And I wear a chest protector, a back protector, and a hip and shorts protection for your cossackes and all that. And on top of a full leather suit. And, a lot of people have the full airbags now. I don't have an airbag yet, but I'm looking to get a new suit. I sell Revit.
I heard you say that. Yeah, because I actually have that same Alpine Star suit behind you. So that's actually what I run, except it's red and black. It's not.
Oh, the Atom. You got the Atom.
The Atom, man, I love it. It's because I'm a little bit bigger guy. I mean, I'm 6'4", almost 6'4", and when I'm not training, I'm close to 260 pounds. Before I strap a cow on me. But it's good to have that kind of stretchy material it has in the chest and gives me a little more flexibility and movement. But yeah, I like that Atom suit. Heck, I've had it probably for 6 or 7 years, and fantastic. But
it's a good suit. Nothing wrong with it. It's got the good knees. Some of the lower suits that I've had. I think it was the SP1 was my very first suit, but that's an entry level, like $1,000 price point. Might have got it on clearance for $800 or something. And the knees don't feel as good. They feel a little bit tighter, but the Atom is definitely a good suit. I might actually sell the Atom to get a Revit suit. I feel like I should wear my own brand.
Yeah. When you said that too, I forget which podcast I was watching. Man, speaking of podcast, that one with Johnny Rock Page, man, that.
So what do you think about that one? That was an interesting.
Oh my gosh, man. That guy was sitting in his leathers. I've obviously followed John for many, many years. And, when he was back riding, 15 years ago, but to see like where his mind is out now and president and his next ex-wife is gonna have to wear the crown or whatever he was saying, man, it was so entertaining to watch. Just people's thought process and perception of the world and where they're at. It's entertaining
for sure. I couldn't just stop him. I had to let him keep going.
Yeah, it was good, man. But yeah, that Atom suit, it's good. The only thing, obviously, it's a little bit older technology. A lot of it's the same. But the elbow sliders, right?
Oh, yeah. They don't have elbow sliders.
Replaceable on that thing. So literally I'll take like, it's so ghetto, but I'll take old like toe sliders and just cut them in half and just super glue it on there. So I'm not going through my suit anymore.
Yeah, that's good. That's a fairly new thing in the industry. Maybe last 5 or 10 years, they started putting like knee pucks, but smaller knee pucks of sorts on your elbows. Usually like a hard plastic or titanium material.
Yeah. So the idea behind that, right? It's obviously for the guys that want to elbow drag and stuff like that, but it's really more safety that's built into it because it's an impact zone. And, it's not the speed that kills, it's that instant stop, right? So
Yeah.
the idea is to kind of slide on that plastic and hopefully not tumble and roll and barrel and stuff like that. It's just a slide, almost like how a skateboarder or a BMX or whatever has those plastic knee pads now. So when they go down the banking, they just land on their knee pads, on a half pipe or something, and they just slide on their knee pads, and it's kind of the same principle is just to help you slide and dissipate speed instead of just hooking up and rolling, and it's
right.
They're all in the impact zone. So obviously your knees and stuff like that, and then elbows, and then the shoulders, everywhere where you typically hit and roll, the idea is to slide on it. But yeah,
I think of it like those glass breakers. I carry a knife that has one of those carbide tips. And so the idea is if you put all your force into a really tiny point, you can break anything with a low amount of force.
Yeah.
Same thing, opposite way. If you dissipate all that force between a wide area, you probably won't break it. So if you try to punch a glass, it's probably not going to happen. But if you hit it with a tip, same thing with breaking bones.
Yeah, 100% for sure. Yeah, right out there.
Way to think about it. So no more breaking bones. Have you been injured from riding at all?
Yeah, never on the track, like you said. Like I've never gone through a set of leathers, and after a crash or a low spill. I've high sided a couple times on the track. I've low sided before, of course. And you just kind of slide around, you get back up. And for me, I'm always just looking for my bike to hopefully not land on me, and then B, not sit there and just dolphin itself in the middle of the grass so I can get back on it and go.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the street, I was street riding and just left my house, and a car ran a stop sign right in front of me. Cold tires, did everything I could to try to avoid it, and it got to the point where that car wasn't going to move, and I tucked the front to avoid it. And of course, the first thing I did was stiff arm. Broke a couple little things there, and that still affects me today. It kind of creates some arthritis and additional arm pump and stuff. It sucks because it's just gonna get worse, right? As I get older, that aching and stuff like that's going to continue to be there. So the downside for me is that it's my throttle hand, right? Everything's done on this hand. So throttle, braking. So when this thing starts aching, it just pumps everything up. How it feels my left hand would be no big deal, but mentally I always have to tell myself, okay, don't do anything, and put K-tape on it and CBD oil, something, just to get through it. Yeah. But
make sure you do all the exercises and stretching and all that stuff.
Yeah, especially now, getting ready for the Moto America season, Stock 1000. I've been doing a ton of Peloton. My wife bought me one last Christmas.
Okay. That's the cycling machine?
Yep. And we have the tread coming. Should be here, I think, next week. And just
nice.
Because any type of workout that you can think of is on there, from stretching to yoga to meditation to boot camps, obviously spin and tread, indoor, outdoor. It's all on there. Of course, it's pricey. And no matter what you do, whatever you put into it, that's what you're gonna get out, right? I mean, how many people get gym memberships and pay X amount of dollars for a membership, whether it's yearly or monthly, and never even go?
Yeah, I probably went once in the last month. However, I do a lot of other stuff, so that's my excuse.
Yeah, you do a lot of running stuff now?
Yeah, so today I just did a fitness class. I do Orange Theory Fitness, if you're familiar with that. So today was just a warm up on the rower, and then we ran about 2 miles, and then we did a section of weights for about a half hour. So
I'm familiar with it. My wife does Orange Theory, and so does my sister-in-law, and they do it, and they get up on the leaderboard. What's it called? SWAT points or something like that?
Splat points.
Splat points. Yeah. They do that, and I'm like, that's kind of similar to the Peloton stuff, because there's a leaderboard up there.
Yeah.
Of course, it's kind of ranking what your output is and heart rate and all that stuff. It's very similar to that, but yeah, they do it and they love it, man. Of course, they hit the rowers and the tread, and all the floor exercises and weights. It's awesome. Yeah,
it's nice that someone's kind of telling you what to do for your workout today. You don't really have to think about what I'm going to work on. So today there was they have something called base pace, push pace, and all out pace. So I was on the treadmill. I'm like, I'm not really pushing all out today. So I just did like my half-ass push. I was like 6 to 8 miles an hour instead of 10 to 12 today. Just kind of taking it easy. And that was fine, but they do every 60 seconds all out, and then rest for like a minute to a minute and a half. And back to, they did that maybe 10 times. So you get to run and walk and run and walk. So it's nice if you don't really want to run 2 miles all at once. You can, do something a little different and kind of mixes it up. And they say if you confuse your muscles, keep it interesting, then not only your mind doesn't get tired, but your muscles don't either, and you can keep getting stronger.
So they go off of distance for that, or is it timed?
It's just time. So however fast you go, we're going to just do 60 seconds and then take it back to your walking pace.
You can do anything for a minute, right?
Yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, it goes up to 12 miles an hour, and I can run at 12 miles an hour for a little while. I don't know about a full mile yet, but maybe if I try. I mean, I don't really try to sprint the mile often.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. But cardio is key, especially for what we're doing in road racing and just riding motorcycles, just life in general, right? Movement's life. But cardio, just being on that Peloton the last year it blows my mind, because I wasn't doing much running because I'm getting old and bad knees and heavy and just lazy probably more than anything. But jumping on that Peloton and then actually going outside and going for a run and stuff like that, I was like, man, what I used to gas out probably just under a mile and I'd keep pushing. But now I just go through and I look at my heart rate and I'm like, I'm not even tired. That's just training on a bike versus, actually get out and running. And then when you incorporate the two, it's massive. So cardio is key for everything, for sure.
For sure. And I would say for motorcycle road racing, you don't really need to be a brute strength bodybuilder type. What you need is tons of cardio. So for years, I've been doing at least 1,000 miles of cycling and running combined annually. So sometimes up to 1,500 miles, not much more than that. But I'd highly recommend doing that for your cardio fitness, because you see females out there competing pretty well against men. You do need some strength and endurance, but most of it is like your cardio conditioning, being able to do the same thing for a half hour, maybe 45 minutes, unless you're endurance racing, maybe even longer. But up to 45 minutes at peak performance at 100 degrees in full leathers, and keeping it at the limits of physics for that period of time without making a mistake is the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, the muscle memory and speed perception and kind of getting your brain working right with that. And the cardio is key for sure, man. Maxing out your heart rate and having that kind of sustained for a while. And it's cool now, like when you watch MotoGP, they show they show some of the riders' heart rate and stuff. And I mean, those guys are just as nervous as the rest of us, they're up there at 160, 164 and chilling out. So for me, what I try to do, especially like on a half hour class or something like that, I'll try to max out the entire time, because I figure for like stock 1000, it's like at Road Atlanta, it's only like a 13 lap race, right? So that's going to be about 19, 20 minutes. So I try to at least double what the race is, so that when you're, it's not going to be physically that much harder, to cut that in half. If I can sustain a maxed heart rate of 160, 165, of course my max is like 194 or something, but keep it right there where you're not gassing yourself out, but you're up there and kind of paying attention to everything. But that's the goal, is kind of just double whatever the race distance is. Yeah. Able to have that. So when you're ready to go, you're ready to go.
Yeah. You should have the mentality, suffer in training so the race is easy.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't want to be testing your limits in the race. You want to be testing them in practice.
Yeah, you see that, right? You see a lot of guys just incorporate, they just do a shit ton of track days, and that's it. They don't do anything else, man. They go there and they party and have a good time and try to show up and race. And for me, I'm all about that life too. Racing for me is 100% fun, but with the amount of time and money and dedication you got to put into it to reach the professional level or the national level, even if it's weird national event and you have these Moto America boys coming down there, like the Joe Giannatos and the Andrew Lees and the Mesas and stuff, those boys are on the grid with you. You know what I mean? And you got to be ready to go with them, and you just can't be partying the entire time.
Yeah, for sure. I remember at Road Atlanta Cycle Jam many years ago, James Rispoli was on the grid with me. I'm like, oh boy, we got some heavy hitters. He's coming over from the UK at the time, racing in British Superbike. I'm like, damn, I'm not going to beat him, but hopefully he'll be in sight by the end of the race, or hopefully he hasn't lapped me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's flying. I think he's on a bagger this year, isn't he? Bagger and a
Yeah,
hood.
the big 43 at Daytona on the bagger, and I'm sure he's doing some flat track.
Yeah, yeah, he flies, man. There's a lot of talent in that class. That bagger class, man, that thing, that trips me out. Those bikes were just as fast as the 600s, and science tells us they shouldn't be that fast.
Well, they just have such a massive engine, but they do weigh about 620 pounds.
Yeah, that's the minimum, right? So they're 620 pounds. They might as well be MotoGP prototype Harleys, but there's nothing stock on them. And you can't convince me that the Indians aren't running those FXRs. You know what I mean? Those things are, and they just slap some bags and a front fairing on that thing.
Well, they won at least one of the races. Indian won, and Harley was 2-3. So, I mean, Indian's on top for at least one of the races. I'm not sure the standings of the second race.
Yes, second race, Jeremy McWilliams won it, and then it was an Indian sweep.
Oh, they locked it out.
They locked it out. So Kyle had some issues. He had a mechanical, and then Tyler, I think, finished fourth. But yeah, they locked it out. It was Jeremy, Bobby Fong, and Tyler O'Hare.
And I think the first one, Travis beat out his brother, the championship leader from last year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad for the Wymans that he's not funding his own deal, because I know that's obviously taxing. Even as a privateer, man, you go and you set all your own stuff up, and it's hard to focus. Even club racing, right? It's so mentally and physically exhausting and stressful to make sure you have all your stuff with you and stuff like that. So it has to be such a relief to kind of get some of that support and not worry about that. And
Yeah.
which brings another topic up, kind of, is my boy Aaron Yates. Obviously a factory stablemate rider with me, and he's going to be on the BMW and Superbike, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great, man. I couldn't be more stoked for him and his family, and not having to lug that stuff around and put that privateer effort in anymore. And sad to see him not be on the Honda, but to be on the BMW. But then he announces he's going to do double duty, and he's going to race the CBR in stock 1000 and then race the BMW and Superbike. And I'm like, whoa, completely different machines. You know what I mean? And to be able to transition back and forth, I don't even know how they would, I mean, geometry, chassis, feel, everything's completely different on the power output, you know? I think Honda has a little bit more, I don't know, Superbike form, but stock 1000, the Honda's pretty good. But yeah, that transition, the torque curve, where it's all delivered and stuff. I'm like, man, that's not like going from a bagger to a superbike. You know, it's right. Superbike to a superbike.
It'll be a little different, but I gotta say that'd probably help him out, because any extra track time you have, learning going around the racetrack, for more sessions, you have more experience than your competitors based on the conditions, or based on just getting more laps there. So I'd say it's got to be helpful. It's got to be a little bit different going from bike to bike, but maybe he'll learn something from one machine to the other.
Yeah, well, you know, that's actually a good point. I was just kind of thinking about that, is that back in the day, all the factory guys used to do double headers, right? So they raced the 600s and then race the Superbikes. So you'd see Miguel and Jamie Hacking and the Haydens, and I mean, you name it. Everybody besides Matt Mladen rode 600s, and, you know, the Superbikes as well. So yeah, I guess it won't be, it's going to be a transition, but it's been done before, I guess. So
yeah. It can be done. And so tell me a little bit about your background more and your riding experience in place in the industry.
Yeah, so I started riding back in 1998. I'll just give you a high level.
Sure.
So I rode in 98. So I used to work at this auto dealership, as a Toyota dealership, and I used to deliver parts. I'm originally from Northern California. And I would deliver parts in the Reno Tahoe loop. So I basically worked 410s because I lived in Sacramento, California, and would drive the loop around. Well, back in 98, we got this 97 CBR 600 F3 on trade. And I had to have it, man. I'm like, that thing's the coolest thing ever. And it was just sitting back in my shop, and I ended up buying it. Of course, I crashed it the first week I have it, because I never rode a motorcycle in my life.
Yeah.
And then just kind of got hooked into riding. It was just nonstop riding. And then, because I worked 410s, I'd go hang out at my local dealership. And at the time, the general manager, my buddy Dana Tutt, he's like, hey, man, you seem like a cool kid. You're always in here hanging out. I'm looking for a part-time sales guy. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, man. What does it pay? He's like, it's 18% commission, and that's it. And I'm like, wait, commission? Like no salary, no hourly, nothing, no guarantees. He's like, no guarantees, man. It's 18%. He's like, I'll pay for your sales license. Just try it. If you don't like it, no big deal, but I'll pay for your sales license in California to get it, and we'll see what happens. So I was like, I don't know, man. I'm good with my $8 an hour job. And long story short, he called me, or he convinced me to do it, and I did it. And my very first day there is towards the end of the day. And of course, you're just still hanging out in a motorcycle dealership. It might as well be, you know, a giraffe on the side of the building. It's a toy store to us.
Right.
You know, and I sold an XR70 back then. And now they're CRFs, but it was an XR70 and I made like $60. And I'm like, I got to drive all day and work all day to make $60. Like, this is fantastic. I didn't do anything. So, yeah. And then from there, you know, just became, you know, full-time sales guy and just battlefield promoted my way through manager positions and stuff like that. Wore every single hat in the dealership, from finance guy to sales manager, general manager, every manager. And then in 07, 08, I applied for American Honda. And so currently I work for American Honda as a district sales manager. So I'm in charge of 32 Honda motorcycle dealerships in Tennessee, Northern Alabama, a little bit North Carolina, Virginia, and Kentucky.
Nice. Got a pretty good region there of dealerships, it sounds like.
Yeah, some of the largest in the country to some of the smallest mom and pops. Ultimately, they're all mom and pops. But yeah, for me, being a motorcycle guy and a Honda guy in particular, it's a fantastic job and career, and provides me a lot of cool opportunities for sure that I don't think I could experience anywhere else. So it's definitely a blessing for sure to be with Big Red, if you will.
So you ride Red?
Yeah, all the time, man. Yeah.
There you go, right there.
Yeah. It's. I mean, everything is. I mean, I have so much Honda stuff. It's crazy. But again, I'd be a Honda guy if I didn't work for the company. You know, I've been with the company 14 years now. Okay,
so quite a while.
Yeah. So it's all Honda all the time, and that's kind of some of the stuff too. Even when I used to race an AFM, so I started racing. So the way it kind of worked in Northern California is that, and I'm sure it happens just about everywhere, but you start going to these local meetup spots, like on a Friday and Saturday night, right? And you end up being the slowest person there because you've never ridden before and you're timid and you're just kind of learning. You don't know the roads and the twisties and the canyons and all that stuff. And then eventually you get to the spot and everybody's already done drinking their Red Bull and stuff, and you're just pulling up, man. You're like, oh man, I need a drink too. And they're like, no, we're the next one. And then eventually you kind of start making your way up, and then you end up being the leader of that pack, right? And then that's almost too fast for the street. So then you go and you try your hands in road racing. And for me, it was AFM then. It still is AFM, but you get your butt kicked there. You know,
yep. You're at the bottom of the pack again.
You're at the bottom of the pack again, and you get your butt kicked there, and you kind of go with some fast guys and get better, and then you kind of make your way up, and if you're lucky enough, get to the national level. But yeah, even back then, man, I raced I can't even tell you how many Hondas I've had. I had a couple Suzukis throughout my riding career, I guess, but mainly all Hondas. But back then, I used to literally race my 954 bone stock street bike. And I would just switch. And back then you could swap the plastics over really easy. Nothing, like the whole headlight assembly just came off, and the fairings were like 2 pieces and one little butt. It was 15 minutes. I would go riding with the Carl's Jr. crew back in the day on Saturday night and go racing on Sunday. Once I just go riding on Saturday and swap out my plastics overnight and go racing, put a brand new set of tires on for the race, and then ride those tires on. And I always ran DOTs. DOT racers, and I think back then I was running like Michelin's or something like that, some Pilot Powers or something. And so I'd run those through the whole next month, waiting for the next race, go riding. And then I was always a firm believer, whoever rode most in the winter was fastest in the spring type deal. But
yeah, because you don't have rust, you're just already used to riding, you already get that feel and everything.
Yeah, and that's what we do. So we just go rip around. So it was always just kind of fun with it, basically taking a bone stock street bike and throwing some plastics on it. And I don't even think I had brake lines back then. I think it was like the epitome of just, so back then I actually got black flagged one time because I'd race open superbike and then open production. And the really only obvious difference was that you couldn't have a aftermarket exhaust. You had to run a stock exhaust. So the 954s back then, they were legitimately bolt-on exhaust. It was just 3 bolts. and you could pop them on, pop them off. For the dealership I worked at, CHM, they made their own exhaust, and it was a fantastic increase in horsepower, and it was just a bolt-on.
Yeah.
Well, I was like in race 7 and then in race 9, and I totally forgot to swap the exhaust. But that's the only difference between my super bike and bike was just a bolt-on, exhaust, and I ended up getting black flagged for that one. Someone protested. I'm like,
they were just a hater.
Yeah, but just raced the stocker, and even now that's pretty much what I did for Weir last year and Expert, and in previous, even some classes up in Ohio that I used to do, or some series, just stock street bikes, man. My suspension isn't even changed. I mean,
it's amazing. What got me so interested in riding, first of all, was being free, being on your bicycle and just being able to explore and travel different places. And then when I'm old enough, I can put an engine in my bicycle, and now we got a motorcycle. You can just go faster and farther. It's the same concept. So, and then when you can do it on a racetrack, it's like, this is amazing. You can just do exactly whatever you want with your bike and ride it however you, hopefully as fast as you want to go, keeping it on the racetrack. And there's such a rabbit hole of information you can go down, and there's always another 10th to find. Like, you're never done with it. It's just as much as you want to do it. So it's just an endless progression of trying to get better.
Yeah, it is, for sure. For me, at this point, it's just getting my physical self better, right? Because power to weight is everything, especially at a track like Road Atlanta, where, again, last year when I was doing all the weird stuff, I was 255 pounds, 260 pounds maybe, before I strapped a cow on me.
Yeah.
And down that back straightaway, man, I would lose a second or two just on the back straightaway. They would just go right by me and then make it back up and stuff. But there was no fight whatsoever. So now with the Peloton training stuff, I'm down to 230s, and hopefully by Moto America, well, 1 month from this weekend, be in the 220s, hopefully 215. I don't know. But with that being said, it's more physically for me, even beyond motorcycle racing. Of course, there's gonna be a massive benefit from that, but it's always better to be healthy anyways.
Sure.
But I always try to just have fun with it. Motorcycling for me is like therapy, right? It's cheap therapy.
Yeah.
You have a horrible day at work, you could be in a shitty mood or whatever, but by the time you put your helmet on, you got a smile on your face. No one rides angry.
You'll never see a motorcycle outside the therapy office.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen because it's its own therapy. But even track riding and stuff, I try to make sure I have fun with it and go out there and do the best I can do, but also, go out there and do some wheelies and have fun. And I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and measure out my fuel, and even like at track days, you see guys doing that, looking for that next 10th and dumping all this money in aim solos and measuring, I got to have this little component, or I can't even touch my bike if it doesn't have all this grave stuff on it or whatever, Yeah. And for me, that just takes so much fun out of it. Because ultimately that 1/10 or 2 at the end of the day, that's just for you. Like, no one's going to care that you ran 1/10 quicker.
Right.
And how much more effort and stress and mental anguish you put yourself in to get that 10th. What if you don't achieve that 10th and you did all that work? Then you're really pissed off. Yeah. So it's better to kind of work on yourself and then work, with what you got and make those improvements, I think. And I think for me, it's more enjoyable doing it that way. And hence why I kind of race a stock street bike. Effectively, I race a street bike. I don't have a race bike. I have a street bike that I race.
And that's cool. People have all different levels of involvement and maybe places they want to go if they want to get to the next level, or if they want to just be a track day rider, and that's fine. Or maybe a mostly street rider who sometimes goes to the racetrack. That's cool too. There's all different levels of what people want.
Yeah, for sure. There's everybody's perception of it's a little bit different, right? Like, we both agree that this hat's black and red, but I don't know what black and red looks like to you.
Right.
So perception is everybody's reality, and perception is a little bit different. Yeah, for me, it's always just about having fun first and foremost, because this is obviously a dangerous sport. And man, I don't want to be miserable if something does go wrong, like, oh, this sucked and then really got hurt or whatever. It's just not worth it at that point. So it's to always have fun and remember what we do. And that's why we watch races and stuff too, because we're entertained by it, right? So yeah.
We just want to be doing it and showing them we can do it too.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I've gone to some Freddie Spencer schools and stuff like that back in the day, and I've been on and off road racing for, I guess 20 years now. But nothing ever consistent, you know. The reason why I even got back into road racing here, we were at Barber with all my buddies, and shout out to all my buddies. We have this a group of friends that's called Team Sloppy Sprockets. It's a little sloth and stuff, and they do a bunch of track days and whatever, and got hooked up with those guys. And then some of those guys were crashing before they got to turn 2. Then,
like on the outlap?
Huh?
On the outlap?
Sometimes on the outlap, just sometimes on cold tires, you know, it could have been a couple laps into it, but there's like 2 or 3 guys that crashed before turn 2.
Yeah.
And they came up with this sub team called T30B, which is turn 3 or bust. So now that we have a logo for that one and incorporate that. So we have Team Sloppy Sprocket is the parent team, if you will. And then T30B is the racing division of Team Sloppy Sprocket. So we just have this kind of fun group of guys that put this little team together. It's just all for fun, but we have our own logos and things like that and just have a blast with it. But yeah, quick shout out to those guys, because they're the ones helping me out. I mean, you can't race some of this stuff without their support. Even with Weira, right? You just can't go up there and just show up and pull your own tire warmer. You can. I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I when I first started racing, that's exactly what I did. I drove to the track myself in a Pontiac Sunfire 2-door sedan, and then I towed with an open trailer I built from Harbor Freight, and just open everything, no enclosure, and just stuff everything in the back. And at one time, I remember how I had to use tie downs to put the tie tires to the roof because there was no more room on the trailer.
Yeah. You know who did that? Who, I don't know if he's still going to do it because he's gotten some support this year, but Damon Jigalov.
Oh yeah, Damien.
Yeah, Damien. Yeah, my old Honda stablemate. Of course, he's riding Yamaha R6 this year, but him and his dad would do the same thing. They would travel from Chicago like in a Jetta. Just have an open trailer back there with the CBR and gas tanks and stuff, and they'd be crossing the country, you know, through rain and storms and stuff, and then eventually, you know, Wilder would get in the gas tank, and he would have to pull out of races and stuff because, you know, there's water in the fuel.
Yeah, that exact situation happened to me going from Michigan to Alabama, going to Barber. I think it was in early February, testing day. You know, I went down there, and not only did I have water in my gas tank, but also I had a broken transmission. Like the 3rd session in, I was like, oh no, I just went to Alabama for a broken transmission and water in my gas tank. You know, it's not ideal with those water conditions. Even if you leave with a brand new clean bike on Thursday, you get to the track on Friday and it's dirty again. You got to clean everything.
It's hammered, man. That's why I even hate riding in the rain. I have no problems riding in the rain, but all the gunk and like road debris and just the film, man, it never comes off. And then the bottom of your bike looks like it's been underneath the ocean.
Pretty much. But you know, an enclosed trailer is what, a couple $1,000s?
Oh, they're expensive now. Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to my buddies have them. The Team Sloppy Sprocket and T30B boys have them and allow me to tag along. And my buddy Robert hooked us up with a TRC, which I've been just strapping it down with Canyon Dancers for years, right? It's tried and true, but of course it messes up the grips and stuff. And but yeah, they hooked me up with that, so thankful for that one too. So, but yeah, man, it's crazy.
I was looking at one of my next purchases. I would love to get an enclosed trailer, nothing crazy. Maybe you could fit a couple bikes in there, say maybe 6x9. With a V-nose, one of those ramp doors, and that's about all you need.
That is, man. That's really all you need. Because sometimes you could maybe sleep in if it had like an AC or something on it too, would help out. We ended up getting an RV last year, a year and a half ago, I guess. Just spontaneous purchase, and it kind of all stemmed from a storm we had. We were camping with our family out in the lake. And this massive storm came through, and trees fell over, and everything in the camp blew away. And the girls, my daughters, were in a tent, and they're just screaming the mosquito, and like, help us! And it's all collapsed on them. And the whole time they're like, Daddy, I never want to camp again. I want an RV.
Yeah,
so get an RV, and that helps out. But I saw that you had Brendan Kettleson on here.
Yeah, I just had him on. And yeah, he's a great guy to talk to. I think he's number 44 in the Kawasaki.
Yeah, yeah. He's been a good friend of mine for me. I've known his dad before Brendan was even around. So
Yeah.
being in Northern California, watch the kid grow up and be successful, and he's killing it. And all those guys from Northern California, Bobby Fong and Cam Bobier, and grew up racing against some of those guys, especially in supermoto. We'd go to the Stockton Fairgrounds with Cam and Fong and Doug Chandler and Tommy Hayden. Those guys would show up there every now and then too. But I have a funny story about Cameron Bowie.
Yeah.
I think, gosh, this was 2004, 2005 or something like that. And we were racing at Arco Arena where the Sacramento Kings play, the NBA team play. And it was a hybrid deal to where the supermoto track went outside the parking lot and then it dropped into the stadium, and it was half polished concrete floor that they poured like soda on it to make it have some sort of grip. And then half of like a little mini like arena cross track for the supermoto part of it. Well, Cam was on an on an RM85, and the kid's ripping. I think he was probably only like 12 or 13 years old. And I'm like 24 years old. And I'm on RMZ 250, and he gets by me in the end section on the floor section inside the arena. And I'm like, oh, screw that. I'm not going to let this little 12, 13-year-old kid beat me. And I legit punted him into the hay bales.
Oh, no.
Arena. I just didn't punt him, but I just ran him wide so he had nowhere to go, and actually clipped the hay bales and wadded himself up. But yeah, that's my funny story about racing against Cam Bobier back in the day. Took out a little kid. But
yeah, well, sometimes you got to show him who's boss.
Yeah. So that's but yeah, growing up, it's great to see the success with all those guys. I mean, because you've literally watched them from kids, and they're all local, and you've seen them hang out, and from club level to international level and everything in between. Man, it's pretty cool to see.
It's definitely something that's possible for people to achieve, but it's just a very, very small percentage of people who can make it happen. It's like a pop star. It's like you can be a great singer, but not have the backing. You could have, same thing with a racer, but there's so many right components you got to get right, whether it's the family aspect to get you to that level in the first place, or the passion of the rider to push through injuries. It's like we talked about Marquez a little bit. You see him having these massive high sides, and it's like how many times can you have a massive high side like that and come back from it?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's almost like, what's his mental thought process now? I mean, obviously he wants to win championships, and he still has that challenge and spirit within him. But at what point does he have to prove himself anymore? He's a 7-time world champion.
Yeah. It's always like you just want to keep proving it. You want to stay on top at that point. But it seems like he's having to take, maybe with the Honda, the package that's under him, maybe he's having to take too big of risks to stay on top now.
It could be. Obviously, it's a big bike. I think they might have changed some stuff for Indonesia so he can have more of that slide, because again, he's kind of a dirt tracker. Because they've improved the rear grip to the point to where on the front doesn't have feel, right? Something has to give. There's always a compromise. So before it was always front head heavy, but then the rear had no traction. And now it's kind of flip-flopped, and I think they might have done something to try to compromise for that, and it obviously didn't pay out. But I mean, Mark's a legend, and he doesn't have to prove himself anymore, in my opinion. But who am I? I'm a massive fan of him and Repsol Honda and everything else, But
yeah, I think it's I think this weekend was a little bit just his style. I think he makes up a ton of time in trail braking and corner entry when you're carrying so much speed in the corner. And it's just the Indonesian track was such a low grip track that it's going to catch out those people who are pushing in those zones more often than not.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about, I think when we first started, about having like a class that was unlimited, right? Kind of run what you brung. I know Dunlop spends a ton of money to sponsor Moto America and front that, having that spec tire. But I mean, look at Daytona. How awesome was that to see the different tire manufacturers battling, and in the end result, the consumer is going to win, right? Because we're going to have a product where they're having to compete against each other. And because, I mean, reality is Dunlop can bring a fantastic tire or they can bring a horrible tire. It doesn't matter. We got to run it.
Yeah. And so I kind of like the idea of having the spec tire that everybody is the same. There's not as much differences. It makes it less confusing sometimes. However, I think maybe the reason why they stopped doing that was a bad event where they had tire manufacturers competing too much, and they took a chance on a tire, and it ended up being a disaster. Maybe it was disintegrating, or it was dangerous in some way. But yeah, you look at the Daytona results. I think the podium was locked out by Pirelli, and Michelin or Dunlop, I'm sorry, was just off of the podium in fourth with Josh Hayes. So I mean, he was just off by a tenth of a second, but that's all. That's all that matters at Daytona is just hundredths.
Yeah, that's crazy. That 200 was entertaining to watch. Posh, man, masterclass. He just sat back, and it's almost like when you're just drafting, even like on a Peloton, like a road bike, right? And you have to go up there and take your turn up in the front. But dude, if you just want to hang back on there and just get drafted the whole time, you're gonna have so much more energy. And it's almost like what he did. He just sat back and was like, I don't need to show my cards right here, and just put it to him at the end. That speed that he was carrying was unbelievable because he was just rolling out the last like 8 laps. You know, he's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just gonna put it where I need it at the end. You know.
He definitely. I mean, 2 times in a row. That's not an accident.
No, it's not. It's not. And the competition was there, right? You basically had factory teams with the Attack Yamahas and the Ducati effort. I mean, heck, you had the president of Ducati there supporting Heron.
And you have Sheridan Marias, multiple-time endurance world champion rider, and he's a perennial endurance guy. So anytime you're ahead of that guy, in an endurance race, that's a big deal.
Yeah. It was good to see that level of competition. I wish they'd bring the big bikes back there, even if it's a short little sprint race, because everything else is sprint race, right? I mean, I don't know how many bagger races or hooligan races we need. For me, that's a little bit of a disappointment this year that we're basically stock 1000s getting bumped for, the big twins. I get where the money's at, but watch Road Atlanta, watch all these other races. The stock 1000 grid's probably going to be more filled than anything. You see all these track day, or not track days, but you see all these posts coming out now with all the wear races and armor races and CMRA races, and everybody's got Moto America patches on it. How much is that stolen valor? And I don't know. They're just rocking a Moto America patch and actually not a Moto America rider. I don't know, because that does happen. But man, it looks like it's going to be a stacked field, and it's all us old timers out there in stock 1000. And then of course you have the fast guys like the Yates and the Wymans and.
Yeah, and depending on what track you go to, the stock 1000s can be pretty competitive. They can be right up there with the super bikes, which is it's always nice to see. There's
never a runaway, right? They're all pretty equal. You don't see anybody just break away in stock 1000. So it's I think it's an entertaining race, and it's kind of like the 600 race, even 600s, right? SDK and Richie, they were just gone. Hopefully that's tighter now with Heron and Richie and those guys, but. Stock 1000, you don't know who's going to win that thing every year. I mean, it could be Mesa, it could be Alexander, it could be Wyman, Yates.
Yeah, I think the new 600 class. Yeah, the new 600 class is just going to be all over the place. I don't think they've, not to say that they've done anything wrong, but I don't think the balance of performance is going to be perfect coming out of the gate. It can't be. And Daytona 200 is too unique of a race to really have a fair display of the manufacturers.
Yeah, I agree. I think you might even see a little bit out with Road Atlanta too, some horsepower differences, especially Road America. Anything with long straightaways, just like Daytona, the drafting is going to help out a ton. But when we get some of the tighter tracks, I think you'll see some differences. But ultimately, it's the guys with the budget, right? It's going to be the M4 guys. It's going to be the HSBK guys. It's going to be, I guess that's
Ducati and Paolo.
Who is it?
Ducati and Paolo Ciabatti.
Yeah, I mean, so those guys. But, I mean, so it's still going to be your same usual suspect teams up there in 600, and they made it probably a little more difficult for the average club racer or privateer to compete with some of those deals. But at least it's an option out there. But, I mean, heck, a base street bike nowadays is $20 grand, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can buy the Kawasaki 600 for a $10,000 price point now.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
But that's stock. I mean, you could race it. Just get some steel braided brake lines, I would assume, and some change your tires. You'd be ready to go.
That's it, man. If there's an epitome of race and stock, it's me. I have a steel braided brake lines now, the Galfers, of course, bodywork, and some brake pads. Oh, and I have a Brembo master cylinder on there now too, because the stock one. It's really weird that that we run a Nissan master cylinder, but then Brembo on it. So it's kind of mixed match. So I got everything matched up with that. And then the ECU is flash from Paul Kensington with the KCS. So that one's a little bit unlocked and ready to go to try to get maximum horsepower out of it. Because again, I'm racing a street bike. I'm not on a race bike. I'm on a street bike that I happen to be racing. So
was there any other part you would like to have on your bike you don't now? I mean, because that probably already has some sort of electronic quick shifter, maybe already.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it's all auto blip because it is the S1. So it's not the S2. It doesn't have the Marcheschinis or anything like that. And some of the adjustments, like the engine's not all ported and stuff and hand ported like the S2 does, SP2. But I don't know. The fun factor for me is the same. I mean, the thing's ripping fast. Maybe to get to those next couple tenths or something like that, I'd probably have to work on the suspension. But the suspension's stock, and I just run that the stock suspension that came on the bike and just make adjustments with that. So yeah, of course it's undersprung for me, but I've never really had an issue saying, oh, I can't get the bike to turn in, or I'm losing grip or something like that. Especially in a sprint race. I mean, with Wera, you're talking 6 to maybe 8 laps max, depending if it's a national A superbike. I think some tracks we run 10 laps. But for the most part, it's 6 to 8 laps, so it's not too taxing.
For sure. And where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I have the handle across the board. It's High Rev Trev. So it doesn't matter if it's Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Somehow I was able to secure that and all the platforms. So it's always High Rev Trev. Follow me on there. It's not private or anything like that. I kind of use it to promote and just show some shenanigans and yeah, all about doing wheelies and having fun and racing and promoting the brands that kind of promote me and help me, because obviously it's not cheap and you can't do it without good backing, good support, good family base like you're talking about. So my wife is instrumental in making sure everything kind of happens, always on a program. Between her and my buddy, man, they got the schedule figured out. For me, I like to pretend I'm just the rider and show up. But yeah, you got to have a good support crew for sure. But yeah, High Rev Trev on all platforms for sure.
And you got the number 800, right?
Yeah, 800 in Moto America, stock 1000 class. Hopefully I'll be able to try to qualify for some Superbike Cup stuff. I think Road Atlanta will be a little bit tall order, but Barber and stuff I think will be closer and be able to hopefully get in some Superbike races as well. But yeah, number 800, the CBR 1000 Ride Red T30B CBR. And then in Wera, I'll be doing some one-off Wera racing again. That's number 80 there. So I wanted to get 80 for Moto America, but Hector Barber has that thing locked down. So he came in a year before I did and got the double digit.
So I think it's the first year Moto America you have to have a 3-digit number. Next year you can have a 2-digit. That's right.
Yep. It kind of solidifies your spot in the championship for sure. It's kind of funky how it works, I think. You have to at least have 1 championship point.
Okay.
To double digit. So, I mean, there's some guys that have double digits that have never earned a championship point. So
maybe they're grandfathered in somehow if you do more rounds.
Yeah, they've probably just paid Moto America a lot of entry fees.
So what do you got to do to have a 1-digit? Is that any significance once you become a 2-digit placeholder?
I think some of that might be career numbers, like a Josh Herron, stuff like that. But I'm not quite sure how it works. I know with like Supercross and motocross, those become career numbers, the single-digit stuff. And you can also have a career number double-digit. It's all for promotion, right? It's kind of like why some of those guys don't run the number 1, because all their swag and apparel and their merch is their number. It never just has 1 on it, right? So.
Yeah. Would you rock the number 1 or keep your number?
Oh no, I'd rock it, man. You earn it. Yeah, you earn it. I'm not selling merch or anything like that, but if I had the opportunity to ever run the number 1, I'd 100. You earn that. Yeah. It's almost the same as the Moto America patch we talked about earlier, right? You earn that thing. You just can't show up and pay an entry fee and go to a Moto America race. Like, you have to go through a series of qualifications and meet a certain amount of points. I think it's 100 expert points, and you have to complete 6 expert weekends throughout a season. So you just can't go, you know, one weekend here, show up 2 years later, do another weekend there, and stack up. You can do that for the points. You have to get, you know, 100 points within 5 years, but you have to complete 6 weekends in a season. So yeah, if you have it, rock it, man.
For sure. And, you know, some people will say, oh, a pro license ain't shit. Well, I say that's bullshit. You know, you can't knock a professional license because, like you say, it takes work to get that. You have to prove that you're capable, you're a safe rider. And they don't only look at your race finishes. They look at how many times are you crashing? Like, are you taking out other riders? Like, what is your reputation on the racetrack? That's an important factor when becoming a pro.
Yeah, same thing with sponsorships, right? They look for that stuff. They look for your handles and see what kind of presence you have and your professionalism and things like that. But yeah, it's earned, man. And it has to be 6 successful weekends, so no crashes. It's like if you're a provisional novice and you crash out, man, you're not going to be the novice.
Right.
Qualify. So it's kind of similar in that case of it. But yeah, earning a pro card is definitely it's a dedication. It's not something that you just I'm going to go for it. And that's kind of how it all started. I think I was going down that road before, but we're just sitting up on the hill at Barber a couple years ago, and we're talking about racing and this and that. And I was like, I used to race, but man, I had a lot more fun doing track days and stuff and hanging out with my buddies and whatnot. And then we're looking at the lap times of the stock 1000. I'm like, well, wait a minute, those are lap times we're doing. So we try it. So long story short, I committed myself to it and went through the whole season with Weir and earned my pro card and lost out on the senior superbike championship by 3 points. That one stung. Dan Kruger put it to me the last 2 races. Actually, if you would consider the GNF in there, I think I would have got it, but GNF's its own deal.
And no points awarded, just bragging rights.
Just bragging rights, yeah, in the GNF, and I ended up finishing 3rd that race. And man, and I'm a racer too. That 3rd place really quick was a boring race. I'm out there just cutting lap times. There's nobody around me. I think Mickey and maybe Jeff May, they were gone, and it was still a stacked field, but I was just out there by myself. And I came in like, what's wrong? I'm like, that was boring.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, this next race, I think I'm starting 12th or 13th on the grid. I'd much rather race back there and be dicing it out for a top 10 or a top 15 and battling and having fun than just out there cutting lap times, you know? So,
but it depends on what you're looking for. In a race like that, that's no points, it's kind of difficult, but I mean, you're still got a safe podium if it's boring.
That's true. Yeah, it's always nice to come away with that $8 piece of tin for the weekend, you know.
Well, they actually upgraded the trophy since I've been getting them. We just got the wood with the little plaque on it. Now they have some different design company doing it.
Yeah, they look nice. They're cool. Yep, different. They're all metal. They're like all printed on metal. I have them in my I call them my pain cave, where all my Peloton and workout gym is here downstairs. But yeah, so I have all that stuff in there, and I like to share. Ultimately, I also like to bring them home to my girls too. So I give them my trophies, you know.
Yeah.
So they like to see that and stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
And after you get a lot of them, they keep stacking up.
They do, man. Yeah, it's some of the relocations I've had to do with Honda. I've just thrown them away.
Yeah.
Like especially like the big trophies and stuff. So you just take a picture of all the trophies, and instead of carrying around hundreds of pounds of trophies,
right?
I love the plaques, man. The plaques are awesome. To see that wall back there, it kind of looks like what my gym is. Even race numbers too. I used to be a speed skater, so you see race numbers pinned onto us and stuff. And
yeah, the ones on the sides are from like mountain bike races or foot races I've been doing.
Okay.
Different championships for that, but yeah, I mean they just sit after you. For a while, I moved 7 years in a row every year, and so they just for a while they sit in boxes. You're like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And then like, well, I need some sort of background for my podcast, so why don't I just nail them to the wall and go from there?
Yeah, looks good. Just make sure you put a Revit suit up there next time.
Yeah, you know, I think what I really want to do is get like a cloth or something like that, but have it all the logos that I sell or a board. You know, when the riders sit down in the garages, they have like a sponsor board behind them.
Yeah, the repeater board. Yeah,
do all the logos because I have like 34 brands that I sell now, plus my logo. To be like 35 different logos on the thing. I think that'd be probably more profitable than my credentials.
Yeah, for sure. And you can get those things relatively inexpensive. Not that I'm a promote a brand or anything, but Banner Buzz.
Banner Buzz?
Yeah, bannerbuzz.com. They make stuff, and it comes quick too. Like it's all made in India. It
Yeah.
comes here in the US, but they outsource to India, and you'll have it in less than a week. And they always have like 50% off sales and stuff like that. But I make little soccer flags for my team because I coach U8 and U10 soccer.
Oh, nice.
So we it's all about fun. So our team has flags and stuff like that. So I'll get some of those made, and man, they're quick. So, and they have those repeater boards and those backgrounds that you're talking about. So
yeah,
not about them or anything, but that's a good source.
For sure. I'll check them out, see what they got. And yeah, just like for a while, you don't know what to put back there, or for a backdrop. I'm like, I don't have anything to show. What am I going to put out here?
Right.
But yeah, it's just the progression as things change.
Yeah, it's that's some Weir one back there too, isn't it? You got some Weir ones up there?
Oh yeah, all the black ones are Weir black.
Okay.
They're kind of brown. But most of them right behind my head are all the Weir trophies. And then a lot of the ones around here. I got 3 championships for Weir.
Nice.
There's another one behind me, right there.
That's awesome. Congrats, man.
I think it's like 50 podiums and 5 championships between motorcycle road racing, karting, and mountain bike racing.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
You just, I couldn't afford motorcycle road racing for the last couple of years. And so I'm trying to get into other stuff. Like I said, the mountain biking and the karting. I love doing that stuff too. I'm not as good at the mountain biking because it requires a lot more pure physical endurance. But when it comes to motorsports, I'm right there with the times. It's just trying to fund it all is the hardest part.
Yeah, racing across the board is expensive, right? Whether it's foot racing or bicycle racing, speed skating, it doesn't matter. It's just, when you get to a competitive level, you kind of want the best of the best. If you look good, feel good type deal, and you don't want somebody to have some sort of advantage because, they're in a better shoe than you or have some better gearing than you or something like that. So that's when the prices start eking up to take it to that next level. But that's awesome, man. I feel like I'm kind of like you in that sense where I'm just a racer as well. Like I'll race anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. And last year, maybe you heard me talk about it on another podcast, but last year I got into supermoto riding at the track.
Yeah.
I got my first car track day weekend under my belt, and I rented a real race cart and took that to the track too. So been getting into like X30 horsepower carts, tag carts, and just trying to get my feel for a bunch of different things. And now been doing track marshal stuff for I think 6 different organizations. So trying to get a whole new aspect of the motorsports scene where you're talking to race control and waving the flags and picking up motorcycles. For Wera, CCS, Azra, I did Moto America, IndyCar, and I'll be flying to Coda to do the MotoGP round and Miami to do Formula One. And then, like I said, I already did the ARMA event, so that'll be 8 organizations.
Is that like an invite for that?
So yeah, it's you have to apply and you have to be accepted type of thing. So I got invited to apply because I actually knew one of the people running it, and then they accepted me right away because I already have done I think 12 or 13 weekends in the last year or so.
Nice. So that's gonna be a blast.
Heck yeah, I'm excited to do MotoGP, and hopefully I don't meet any riders in the corner or the gravel chat, but you probably will. And then Formula One being it's kind of a street circuit,
around the stadium, right?
That'll be super unique. I did the IndyCar at St. Petersburg earlier this year, and that was a street circuit. That was my first street circuit working, so that was pretty interesting. There's not a ton of great places to spectate. It's just a difficult circuit for the drivers.
Yeah. Is Nashville on the market this year or on the schedule for IndyCar again?
I'm not sure their full schedule, but I took a picture of it on my phone earlier for the back of a T-shirt in their merch stand. I was like, that's my schedule from now on.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
But yeah, I'm just trying to see the sport from a new angle and maybe make a career out of doing something like this. It's not incredible pay, but you get to be at the racetrack, be in the action, And like sometimes like at the Daytona 200, you probably couldn't tell it was me, but I was on camera like 50 times. You know, I was at corner 3 the whole time. So
Okay.
I was the flagger at that station. And I mean, there's a couple of times where they said, "Oh, the yellow flag is out," and they were talking about me holding the flag. And I'm like, "That's awesome!" So I saved it, you know, on my phone. But
That's awesome.
it's just kind of blurry. It's too far to tell my face what my face looks like. But I know where I was standing. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Because I mean, the pay is, we all pay to be in the sport. So to opportunity and see the other angles of it, man, it's fantastic. It's almost like with me with kind of Honda, you know, we get to look behind the curtain a little bit beyond what's on the public side of it. But yeah, that's cool stuff. Maybe once I'll do that. Some of my other buddies are doing it, corner working, and you know, you and I think Daniel Shoemake and those guys, and so.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You know, I'd recommend it to anybody who rides or races or has been at a racetrack. It's so different than maybe what you expect. It's like I think what they call flying, or what they say about flying, where it's long periods of boredom with short periods of chaos or something like that.
That makes sense.
It's because a lot of times there's been days where nothing has happened in my corner and I didn't have to do anything. No flag. I mean, so you usually put a yellow flag out for certain situations, even if there's an off and on or something. Depends on where they run off. But yeah, even for slow riders in Moto America, they don't want a flag out because that would stop passing. So if there's somebody going slow and maybe has a mechanical issue, they don't want to fly because then they can't pass. It's counterintuitive sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It depends on the org too. That you kind of mentioned that, because they're
all different
flags at all.
Yeah.
So you'll be coming up on a lapper with some 15, 20 mile speed difference, and they have no clue you're coming.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, we don't want to spook the rider." I'm like, "Well, what's going to be more spookier?"
A flag or someone coming by you at 30 miles an hour faster off 30 millimeters away from you.
Yeah, so depending on the org, and I think Daytona has different settings too, like a waving debris flag versus a rain flag or something like that too. Or
in Moto America, almost all flags are waved. There's only the stationary yellow that's not waved. Yeah, and there's no ambulance flag because they don't put an ambulance on the track unless until the track is clear, so they don't even have to worry about that. They don't use, I don't know why, but I had a white flag in my bag. We don't use the white flag. That's maybe only for start finish for last lap, but in MotoGP they don't have a white flag. They use a yellow board for 1 lap to go and 2 laps to go. It's just a board that's held out. So every single organization is different. So just like a riders meeting, there's always a corner workers meeting before or the day before to go over the flags. And there's a PowerPoint, given by MotoGP marshals and all that stuff. And there's questions and, forum of sorts to make sure we got everything understood. And obviously the most important thing is the workers' safety. Because if you get hit, if you get hurt or injured, you can't help somebody else. So it's about, staying behind all the barriers. At Daytona, unlike anywhere else, maybe Homestead Miami, they did it, but they can see everything from the tower anyways. They're watching all the stations, probably with binoculars, I don't know. But they will say sometimes, turn 4, please get behind a tire barrier. We can see you from our station now. So they're actually looking out for our safety. Even though we're supposed to be in charge of our safety, we got more eyes than just ours.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you think there'd be like a universal just flagging deal, right? Like a universal guideline, this is what it is? Because even in AFM, I think for sure the track days out there, and I think AFM, like a red flag, you don't come off the track. You go to the next flag station and stop at that flag station off to the side of the track. So they don't wait for everybody to come into the pits. Like they're trying to get that ambulance out on track as quick as possible. So you just go to a flag station and sweat your balls off for 20, 30 minutes and, the problem I've run into or maybe realized is that every single racetrack
not everyone, but it seems like just about everyone's a different company. They're owned by different organizations. They have different owners, so they have different policies and different rules. They can do whatever the hell they want. There's no, I mean, there's a bunch of tracks I know owned by Daytona Motorsports groups, mostly like NASCAR tracks and things like that. So maybe those are different, but for the most part, they're all their own unique entities, and they're all gung ho about doing their own thing, I guess. I don't know. There's no like union of racetracks that I know of that have the same rules. Because every time when I'm doing these different organizations, sometimes I'm paid by the racetrack, sometimes I'm paid by the race organizer, sometimes nobody knows who I'm paid by. It's like it's all over the place, or it's sometimes a different company that's managing the corner workers. It's like it's all over the place.
What's the big one? Is it FDF or something like that? It's the big flag corner work?
Yeah, there's flagging by Phoenicia.
Yep.
Phoenicia is a great woman. She does the Southern events. She does Barber, I think Road Atlanta, probably some other ones down there. I've worked with her at Barber a couple times in October. I worked for the Moto America one down there. And yeah, sometimes it's, like I said, it's all over the place. But it's interesting to not only hear the radio communication, because you get all the facts from the track. You hear like, oh, rider 800, he's, he cut the blend line on exiting pit, and they'll report that stuff. Anything that goes wrong that we think is like an issue, or like rider 32, he's got his zipper down. He's got a leather malfunction. He's got to come in and do up his leathers. There was a couple of times at Daytona where the riders didn't know what a meatball flag is supposed to do. It's they would stop at our station, and it's supposed to come into the pit lane and all that stuff.
So meatball, there's mechanical. Do you have an issue with it? Black flag is your DQ'd.
Yep. And so there's also other reasons. You could be like you could be dropping oil on the track or something like that, or I think in this case it was a transponder issue. He didn't have a transponder on his bike, so they meatball flagged him.
Yeah.
So
too many rules, man.
But that's about an hour and a half already, so I guess we could probably wrap this up. And hopefully I'll post another podcast or two the next day or so. And I appreciate you talking to me.
No problem. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a pleasure. And if we ever see you out the track, to Moto America or track day or whatever we're at, man, swing on by and look for all the Ride Red Honda stuff, because that's what our tent's always covered in. And come by for a drink or something, man.
For sure, we'll do. I think next one I'll be at COTA, MotoGP, and then after that, probably the second round would be Road Atlanta in Georgia.
Yeah, I'll be there making debut. So.
All right. And are you doing a full season this year of the Moto America?
Just a couple. I think the plan is Road Atlanta, just the local stuff, right? Especially now with gas so expensive. But Road Atlanta, maybe Virginia, and then Barber for sure. So those are the three we're gonna do, and we'll see what happens next season. But again, it's for fun, not chasing the championship or any sort of glory. Just gonna go make some memories, man.
Very good. Well, I'll see you at the racetrack.
Cool. Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.